Chrome Pipes and Pinstripes, episode 204, A Custom for a Kiwi.
All right, folks, hello and welcome to episode 204 of Chrome Pipes and Pinstripes. I'm your host, Royboy from RoyboyProductions.com. That's the website where you can find all the hot rod and custom car show photos I can take for you all over the country when I can go somewhere, when there's stuff to go to. Lately, not been a lot of that stuff to go to for the last 15 months or so, and quite frankly, I can't go to some stuff right now. So, not been a lot of content on the site. I totally understand that. Trying to get some more in the pipeline coming for you. I've got some friends taking photos at different events around the country this week, next week, and we'll see if we can get some stuff back going on the website for you. So let's talk about more of that stuff later or some other time. Let's get into this podcast. This is going to be a really fun one. My buddy Clint from New Zealand, he lives in I'm pointing this way if you're watching the video because that's where Denver is that way. But he lives up in the Denver area now. But we have a really good discussion talking about all kinds of fun stuff, including his new custom that he's having built and or he's building. Very, very cool stuff. I think you're going to enjoy it. Catch you on the flip side. Well, with me via Zoom is my good buddy Clint Glasgow, and thank you, sir, for having a talk with me tonight.
Absolutely.
Well, I wanted to talk to you because being someone who grew up somewhere else and then coming to the States, you have a little different perspective than a lot of us that grew up here hot rodding, I'm assuming. And B, absolutely, because you're having some really cool work done to your Merc right now. Actually, you're ready to pick it up, I believe, is what I saw on Facebook yesterday. So yes, let's first talk about the Merc. What's going on with it?
So I will be going out tomorrow like a little schoolgirl giggling on the way, 1,150 miles.
Ooh, that's all?
To pick up this 40 Merc that I picked up.
That's the one you came by my house with, right? That's right, a few months ago.
Exactly. That ugly looking roofed one that came past your place. Yeah, that one now is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be going out to pick that up from the Mingus twins, Peter and Scott, the amazing guys. Like you could sit down, it's like you'd known them forever.
Yeah.
Just two good, hardworking dudes. Not really on social media that much on some of the stuff, but I tell you what, I've never had such good communication. Like I get photos all day.
That's so important for builders to do, and so many builders don't understand that. That right. The more pictures you take and send to your customer, the more they see you doing. That's amazing. Just when that bill comes, absolutely, it works so much better.
Absolutely, and so I get all the updates. Not every day, but whenever they were working on the car, which was virtually every day there for a while. In fact, they were waiting on stuff. Sometimes it was holding them up, but they got stuck right into it. Their work's amazing. They've done some really nice customs, and I've kind of seen them on Instagram the last couple of yees. But they kind of have their own good group of like solid customers out there in California. And yeah, I'm just over the moon with the car. The window frames are perfect.
Yes.
The chop is just bang on. It's perfect on that one. It's low. It is 7 inches in the back and has a 4-inch dropped axle in the front. So yeah, I'm going to be interested on seeing how we can get it off the trailer.
Very long ramps.
Yes, very long ramps, but no, they're just great guys. And when you meet them, they're just good people. In fact, I'm trying to talk them into coming out to like the hill climb or just come out and do some cool stuff because they'd have a blast. So a slight
aside here, hill climb, I can't make it. Same weekend as my open house at work. I have to be there.
I know that sucks.
I just texted Woody about the 4th of July deal and told him we couldn't make that, and now I can't make it. And I'm just a big sad panda right now. Okay, so I reached out to the guys after you started showing some pictures of what was going on with the car, and I'm like, let's have them on a podcast. So I invited, hey, would you like to be on a podcast? Sure, we could do that. What's a podcast? I'm like, oh, yeah, these guys. We'll have to do a little talking. We'll have to talk about it.
Yeah.
I wanted to wait until the car was done, but we're going to try to get them on here in the next coming weeks or month or whatever.
That would be great. Yeah.
So you've got the car, you're going to pick it up, you're going to bring it back home. What is the next step for the car?
So the next step was I was actually talking with Zach out in the garage about this over a couple of beers.
Yeah.
Is to bring it down to the springs. There's Wayne down there, and he's really good at paint correction. I don't want to paint the whole car because the car's only a 25,000 mile car.
Oh.
I chopped up. Yes. So I want to keep all the fenders, the original fenders, just polish them up. So they're going to have a few little, marks and stuff.
Yeah.
In my brain, I wanted a custom that we found in Pueblo that had been there, that was built in the 50s. It's stuck in a garage with blankets over it, right? And we pulled it out and we polished it up and we got it running. That's my vision in that car. I don't want to paint the whole car. I think it doesn't warrant it. The chrome is just it's an amazing condition. It's just such an amazing old girl. I kind of want to just not take away from it and then just have another like polished Merc, street rod kind of thing. The other Mercury that I still have, that's kind of what that car is.
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of a street rod turned to a traditional custom, and Dan did a great job on it. Don't get me wrong, but the 40 is just, there's something about it. Just getting in that car, it feels like a time warp, but a custom.
Well, and we can also talk briefly. I mean, is that all that's in the garage? First of all, just two Mercs right now.
No, there's a little Model A back there too.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Didn't know about this Model A.
My life that I've ever brought back. I'm normally pretty heartless, and I just okay, I'm done with this part of my life.
Yeah.
Sell and move on. Here's my new toy, my shiny new toy to look at. But no, the guy that I sold it to, super awesome guy, kept on saying, dude, I'm all good if you don't want to sell it. I get it. It's kind of your car. I put some different carburetors on it to sell it because the carbs that I had on it weren't mine, and I was lazy and waited 2 years to actually put carburetors on it, as you do. So I had these carbs, these 81s rebuilt, put them on, sounded good, sweet. He was rolling through from Texas back up to Casper, so the timing was kind of there. Kind of rushed it. He was like, no worries, jump and, put the car on the trailer and away he went. Well, he gets it up there and I get a message a couple of days later, the car's just not running right, man. There's something goofy. I just don't know what it is. And so I'm like, no worries. Kind of gave him a spiel on where we're at. Sweet. Awesome. Okay. A couple of days later, he goes, I still can't get this damn thing to work. I just don't know what's going on with it. So that's when I was like, well, it's who I am. I'm like, I didn't sell you a dud, buddy. I promise you, it's a great little car. I said, put it this way, I kind of regret selling it. So I'm going to open it up here and I will buy it back. If you're not happy with it here, he goes, I don't really want to sell it to you. It's super cool. You just don't see these cars come up like this.
Right.
Gave it another week. And he calls me, he goes, dude, I'm just frustrated. I'm just not, something's going on here and I just can't figure it out. I'm like, bring it back, man. I've got your money here. And he goes, okay, you sure? I'm like, yep. I think the car needs to be back. It was awesome. We shook hands. Super, super nicest guy in the world. There was no ill will anywhere. And it was the funniest thing. Get it off the trailer and it's kind of running decent. I'm like, she needed to be home.
Yep.
I definitely regretted that one. I will not drink beers at Todd's house and advertise hot rods anymore.
A lot seems to happen at Todd's house. We're not going to go into the other story, but yeah, a lot seems to happen at Todd's house.
Right. No, it was meant to be here, and I actually am definitely super stoked that it kind of actually worked out the way it did. So
very cool.
Not gonna lie.
When I opened that leading question, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So that was a very, very big surprise. Okay,
yes.
so you got your Model A back, and I'll throw a couple pictures from your Facebook onto the show notes for the podcast here. So if everyone wants to go look at the website, you can see them, and in the video here for Patreon, instead of just looking at our two handsome faces, we'll flash a couple pictures up of the cars.
Oh, we have to, absolutely,
but not for much because we're so good looking.
We are extremely good looking.
So, and I've kind of flubbed on the intro to you. I'm trying to get past that as quick as I can before we start devolving into something else. I try to kind of flubbed on the intro because we'd been talking for 15 minutes before we hit record.
Right.
So folks who've been listening to the podcast would have heard you last summer when we were at Woody's place. We did that live podcast out in front of Woody's house that night, and you were on there for a little bit. So if you want to hear the backstory a little bit on you, we can go back. You can go back and listen to that. But you are just outside of the Denver area. I keep getting dark over here because the computer I'm using as a side light keeps going asleep.
Yeah.
So it's I'm trying to figure out which corner I have to put the mouse in to keep it open.
Right.
So, you're in the Denver area, but obviously you don't have a Denver accent. So
no, I'm from south of the border.
So a little southwest of Denver.
It's quite a swim, yeah. Basically, where I'm at is originally from New Zealand,
right?
And as a little kid, I grew up with American cars. My dad was like, he loved American cars. I had friends that liked British stuff. Never had any British stuff. Always had the American cars. He had the Harleys. Like, I remember, gosh, I was probably 6 or 7 years old. He had a '69 Mercury Cougar, like with a factory green tint that they came out with, and it was left-hand drive, and we drove on the other side of the road. So I'm technically sitting in the driver's seat in this thing, rolling up the road. Like, it was the coolest thing in the world.
You're watching oncoming cars, just like, oh my God, I'm so close to them.
Right. And so it was fun. And he always had V8s and stuff like that. And I sort of grew up with that. And then we got into, as I got older, my dad got into Chevy trucks. He always wanted a Chevy truck, and they're super, super expensive in New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
I mean, ridiculous right now. So I have my 2018 Duramax in New Zealand right now. It's worth about 180,000 New Zealand.
I think we need to invest in a shipping container.
Yeah. Right.
I'll find some around here we can ship over. Right? Dad's got like 20 Chevy trucks.
Exactly. Well, and so we got into, he started buying these early 80s Chevy trucks. He always wanted one, and it needed to be converted from left to right-hand drive. Well, he found a place, and the guy was super cool, and I needed work. And so my dad actually said, do you want to go work with us? Like, send Clinton and he'll work with you. And if he's no good, send him home. But he's good. So I worked for them for 2 weeks, and I'm like, shit, yeah, come on in. Let's do this. And so I started converting Chevy trucks from left to right-hand drive, which was really fun. And in the meantime, I still couldn't afford any American vehicles. So I had Australian cars, Holdens. I was a GM guy. So I had the Holdens and stuff like that. But it was really cool because I actually got to become the youngest certified, it's called LTSA, Land Transport Safety Association. It's so your cars are safe.
That's
like you
fancy.
take off hot rods, right? And I was 19. So I was the youngest one that was ever certified, which was super cool, feather in my cap. And then I decided to throw it all away and move to America. So, that's just how you go.
Did you see Baywatch or something like that? Move to California?
Well, I've heard originally that's where I was going to go. I was going to go to California. And then my buddy came to Denver, actually Greeley. And I came to see him, and then before you know it, there's a whole lot of us living here in Greeley. Just started living in America. Met my wife and all that sort of stuff. But no, I mean, I did. I grew up with American cars, and I always knew as a little kid I was going to get on a plane and come to the States. I don't know why. I used to remember dropping people off at the airport, imagining my ass in one of those planes coming to the States.
Did you see it at that time as something you were going to do long term, like it's been, or was it just okay?
I had no problems moving up here, and everyone talks to me like you're a crazy man, like New Zealand's beautiful and all this other stuff. I'm like, yeah, it is, but it's just so freaking slow. You can retire there, great, but as a young guy, I just wanted to come and do stuff.
Yeah.
So
well, and it's probably very similar to American kids wanting to go to New York. Because it's the pace of life is so fast there and stuff.
Right. Well, and I put it down to this too. It's and I use this analogy at work, which you were like, I said, it's like growing up in a small town in Kansas and you move to the big city, and 20 years later you go back, and the people you grew up with, nothing's changed. They've just taken over their parents' job. Nothing is really, they haven't gone any further than the border of the town.
Yeah.
And that's what New Zealand's kind of like too. And I just didn't want that.
So the old job I had before I have this new job, I was working someplace that my dad's been at for 52 years. That hurt a little bit, man. That was a.
Yeah, I know. That's why I did it there.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.
Right. So, and that's my analogy, because I do get that a lot. But and again, I wanted to be able to find some of the cars that I've found. You cannot find, go to a place and meet an old boy in Indiana called Earl and buy a 25,000 mile 40 Mercury. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or go to Montana. I brought a 67 Impala from the original owner. I still had all the original paperwork. To me, it's the coolest thing in the world, finding that stuff.
So let's back up a little bit. When you first came here to Greeley, Did you work as a mechanic since that's what you were trained as, or?
No, we actually worked as maintenance for the Armadillo Mexican restaurants. We were really good friends with the owner, and if it wasn't for him, we probably couldn't have stayed here as long as we did. He really looked after us. I mean, he was employing, I think it was like 15 of us.
Wow.
All grew up in the same town. Like, yeah, we're all over here in the middle of America, like putting tiles in a bathroom in a Mexican restaurant at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
He'd ask us, have you ever done this before? Sure. We're sitting there going through the Home Depot pamphlet on how to lay tile. We had no clue.
The former business I was at, the construction company, it was started 72 years ago. And the guy literally, his first job as a construction company was to build a house. And so he bought a book on how to build a house.
There you go.
And he kept the crew one day behind where he was reading, and they built a house.
Wow.
So
That's
literally
amazing.
was reading it as they went, and he and 2 other guys, I think, and they built a house. Eventually they started doing, construction for grain elevators, and, they never did commercial stuff again, or residential stuff like that again. But
right. But that's how you do it.
It literally started, we're talking like 1947 or something like that. 1949, I think it was. But,
right. No,
whatever it takes.
Advantage to that, because we grew up, so where I grew up in New Zealand it's on a peninsula, so it's a lot of construction. It was, even when we were there, it's kind of like what's going on with Colorado right now. Like, there's new construction everywhere you turn, there's a new subdivision. Like, that's where we were too. So a lot of my buddies were doing like construction, or like you said, mechanics, or working on construction machinery. So we all kind of had some sort of background on like manual labor, if that makes any sense. So we kind of could figure it out. Like, it wasn't rocket science.
So when you get over here, you've got some basic idea of a few different things you can do. You start working. What's the first cool American car you buy once you're here?
So I brought a 1986 Chevy Blazer, full size, with a 6.2 diesel in it.
Ooh.
That was my first American car. It was a turd. It was the prettiest, immaculate thing, but it was your typical 6.2. But again, everybody in New Zealand was buying 6.2 diesels because diesel was ridiculously cheap. So that was why you brought those. You didn't buy gas-powered Blazers.
Right.
It was a mistake. But my actual first cool American car, if you want to call it that, was, I'd been married for a while, and we'd moved to Denver, and she could just see that I was just like, I just wasn't fitting in with anything. And she's like, you need to have your car stuff. And so I brought a 66 Mustang coupe in North Denver for like $2,500. And so I brought that. I did some work on that. I flipped it for a 1970 Mustang fastback, which I did some rust work and stuff on. And then I flipped that. So that 66 Mustang was actually how I started flipping cars to make the money to be able to buy the hot rods.
Nice. What was the first hot rod you ended up with?
It was kind of my first. It was really cool because, it reminded me of growing up with it. There's always a car at my uncle's place with the engine out or going in, or one or the other. And so, that's kind of how I started. And I would just flip cars, and each time I got better and better and more money, until I could, my 39, the Ruby was my first real hot rod. And so same thing. I went into, oh gosh, I can't even remember the town now, but it was like 100 miles west of Chicago. We found this 39.
That's quite the trek.
I went out and brought it. Yeah, it was a putt. And so, but that was my first real hot rod, really. I mean, I brought the Impala, and the Impala was cool. I did the whole air ride thing in the 20s, and, that all that sort of stuff. And that was fun, but Ruby was my first hot rod.
Yep. That car is it's been around a little bit since you got rid of it.
I know.
I've not seen it for sale recently, but there's been a couple times that it's like, man, really? Already?
Truthfully, that's actually another car that I would actually have back, because it was a good car.
Yeah. And it's cool.
It was different. It wasn't something. And see, that car was your typical guy. It was an early hot rod that had gone through morphine. Each owner would do something different. And in the end, it had like horrible smoothie running boards. Like, they tried to make an old hot rod a newer street rod, and it was wrong. Yeah. So I just looked at the car, and I'm like, it's got the Nerf bar on the back. It's got the Frenched headlights. Like, it's got a 60s vibe going on, this thing, like even the interior. So I pulled off those smoothie running boards, which weighed like 500 pounds a piece. They welded some thick steel on those bad boys.
The car like lifts after you take them off.
Oh gosh, it was awful. So found some original running boards, did the white upholstery because I just felt like that was a 60s vibe. Put the wheels on it, did the pinstriping just in white because that's what you did back in the day. So it's like anything. You get a car and a car kind of, in a way, it does. I've heard this before. It kind of tells you what it really wants to be, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I've tried to explain that to people over the years. It's like, yeah, well, okay. People come in and today and they're like, well, which of these companies' gauges are the better ones? They're equally good.
Yeah.
What are you doing with the car? And I'll tell you which one's going to be better for you.
Right.
You know, if you're doing an all old school traditional one, you probably don't need the digital display in your dash.
Right. And that's exactly it. And so I was trying to take, again, that it was just different people's interpretations over the years. I get it, and a lot of times you'll find where these guys will spend all this money and do a beautiful job, and then they put these swap meet wheels and tires on this thing. And it's just like, oh, what are you doing? Come on now. You got to keep the consistency up here.
Yeah. Or they'll spend a lot of time and money and do something really well, but it was the wrong thing to do to the car.
Yes.
And then you're like, now we have
exactly
to undo all this and put it back the way it was to make it right.
Right.
Or change everything else about the car so that part fits, right?
Exactly. And that's kind of what I was doing with Ruby. Like, she had the original old school chrome garnish moldings. And like I said, she had the French headlight. Even the hood had this kind of, like, it was leaded. The hood weighed a friggin' ton, but it was beautiful. It was really well done. And that paint was honestly 35 plus years old. It was old paint. And we buffed it up. In fact, even my buddy that polished it said, this is the hardest clear I've ever had to actually cut. Like, this stuff is hard. And so, yeah, it was a fun car. And then obviously I was ready to do it. The next thing, I really wanted a custom. And actually Garland's Customs in California, he'd done this 46 or 47 coupe.
Okay.
And the chop on it, I just love that chop. I stalked his page and Photoshop anything I could find of that chop. And that's when I found this 46 Ford in Utah. That was a really good, clean car. And then Dan, our friend, Mr. Dolan,
who I've never had on this podcast yet.
What's that?
I've never had him on this podcast yet. I need to do that. Because that night we all did that in Woody's front yard.
That was fun.
He's asleep already.
I know.
So,
well, he is old now. He's retired at 48.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough life.
Yeah. We should probably talk some crap on him, but
absolutely.
We'll wait.
And so, Dan came up, I was ready to move Ruby on, and then Dan came up with the 39 that I've got, the Mercury. And so, but again, and in the Model A I'd found, oh gosh, probably 6-7 years ago now. It was on Craigslist and it was a really good buy, and I went straight up to see it. And it was amazing old car. I'm the third owner of that car also. It actually originally came from Utah. Huh. And the gentleman that I brought it from, his father-in-law brought it from the original people, and he passed away. So they couldn't find a title. So it was on Craigslist 6 months before, then it disappeared really quickly. Then 6 months later, here it is again. They had it revinned and all that sort of stuff. But I got to know the history of the car, and I brought it and obviously turned it into what it is now, which is a fun little traditional hot rod. It's actually a riot, that car. I kind of call it my 90-year-old dirt bike. I beat on it and bring it to the soul. It's still the mud from the snow rally is still underneath it. I'm kidding you not.
The snow/mud rally.
That was fun. That was so fun, that rally.
Yeah, it looked like a good time. It's I don't remember that. I'm trying to get comfortable here, stand up, sit down, and know what to do. So I'll move around a little bit for the people watching, people listening here, and all that stuff. So that was when my boss and his wife got COVID.
That's right.
So we're ready to go, and a week and a half before, I'm like, crap.
Yeah,
they're not getting any better, and somebody's got to be here. So I can't take 2 days off to go gallivanting through the snow in Utah. Missing all the good stuff this year.
That was one of the funnest times, though. But how can you not have fun at Woody's place? It's impossible.
Yeah, folks, if you've never, sorry, the microphone sounds here. If you haven't seen it, look up the Flaming Gorge Resort on Royboy Productions, and you will see pictures of a cool little car show that is set in probably the best scenery hill climb is amazing, right? Hill climb looks great, but there's just something about that Flaming Gorge area. And when we do that run on Friday up through the hills, and I mean, you guys are New Bangers are doing a 1,300 foot elevation change like 3 or 4 times on that run.
I cannot tell you, like I had my middle child with me and she's a trooper and we're at the bottom of that hill and she says, where are we going? And I looked like, oh my God, we going that high in this thing? And I was like, come on, baby, you can do it. But I mean, I was in second gear at the very tippy top of it. I'm not going to lie. So, but that was a fun time. That is a whatever you want to call it, reliability run. I don't care. Woody's like drive. That was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's to the point where I'm thinking like, gosh, is there any way that I could just fly out Friday night and be there for Saturday? And I'm like, but then I'd miss my favorite parts of the whole weekend. You know, the rafting, the run on Friday.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the show is fun and all because you get to hang out with my friends, but that other stuff is a little more fun.
You know, the show's kind of like it's still fun, but it's probably the least entertaining, if that makes any sense.
Right. Nothing against the show. It's just everything else is so good. You know,
right. It is like, and I mean, we got there as you know, like me and the boys towed out. We thought we'd have plenty of time, but we were bringing the ladies with us. So, you know, we had the every hour to 2 hour rest stop, as you do. In the end, we were actually using Todd's camper because it just made way more sense just to pull over and let him use the bathroom.
Yep.
But yeah, so we got there, literally unloaded the cars. I was warming the car up on the trailer as I was unstrapping it, and then we joined the convoy on that reliability run.
Oh yeah, I forgot we were getting ready to pull out right as you pulled it. I forgot about that.
Yeah. You guys had already done part of it, and we just came in at the whatever time. But yeah, going down into that gully and stuff like that with all those cars, it was the coolest thing. But it's the same with the hill climb. To me, my favorite part is the Friday.
Yeah, Friday's a blast. I mean, the event is cool. I love the event. I love the scenery. I love the sounds.
Oh yeah,
taking a ride in a couple cars is always fun.
Yeah, but it's a photographer's like dream.
Yeah, I tell anybody, it's like you want to see great scenery and cool cars. I've got one event for you to check out.
Right, absolutely. I agree with you on that 100%. And yeah, the actual racing and stuff, it's fun. It really is. But that's my day to kind of come and hang out with you guys. Yeah. Just come and mingle. Like my car sits there as a pretty princess on the corner because it's too slow to go up that hill.
Even with the ramp at the bottom.
Well, it goes a lot better now. I've done a few upgrades since that. But yeah, it's a heck of a good time. But actually the dirt drags are always super fun too. Let's be honest. It's kind of like a family affair. How
do I say this? I'm super bummed the dirt drags are canceled because I could have made it this year. But I'm interested to see how things go with a possible new venue. There was supposed to be a new venue last year. Of course, last year got canceled. And then this year things didn't line up. So the events canceled, of course, again, for the people who didn't know.
Right.
Actually, it was supposed to be next week. So
that's right. Wow. That's quick.
That'll be an interesting one.
I don't know either. I really, I think it's what we're going to make of it. And I think that's the key thing. We kind of have a crap ton of fun no matter what, where we're at. And let's be honest, the racing's fun, but hanging out with everybody and having a few beers and, watching Kip frickin' Rivers hemi up with the Cubs, it's just fun.
And I keep telling people, I love the Stray Cat 500 that I just went to. It's a great little show.
Yeah,
my favorite part is sitting in the parking lot, telling lies and having drinks with my friends, sitting on lawn chairs. I can't. So people who don't get it, they just don't get it.
They don't.
But to the few people that have enjoyed those moments with the friends that we have, our big circle of friends, that is the thing to do. I mean, I don't care if we all showed up in our daily drivers somewhere and we just sit around and BS.
Oh yeah, it's just because we're past that now, and that's what I was saying. It's like it's morphed from. Like Mike's done a great job of this He's worked his tail off with everybody, to get everybody to sort of introduce each other to make these group of friends that we have. Like it's amazing. I would have probably never known of like the Alma guys and all that sort of stuff. Like personally, I might have seen them out at Bonneville occasionally, but not like we are now. You know what I mean? Like it's just really cool to know that you can stop and feel like you're stopping to visit family while you're on like the drive to Bonneville or something like that.
And then, when I had my issue on the trip and all of a sudden,
dude, that was awesome.
I'm in these guys that, I knew them, but I didn't know them. I mean,
you knew all of them.
We'd met, we'd hang out a few times at an event And that was enough for them Timmy opened up, he put me in his camper for the weekend. They tore the car apart, did everything, and then wouldn't accept a dime from me. Right. Just because, we're the guys that saved the trip. I'm like, yeah, you are. You have no idea.
Actually, yeah, that's true. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
They ride pretty high on that. And I let them because it's totally worth it.
Right. Well, that's exactly it. And that's it. It's just good people just hanging out. And the cars are kind of just honestly just the glue that kind of keeps it going. And it's the fun parts to do with them as well. But, it's the same with like, I haven't gone to Trog yet. I got invited to Santa Barbara's that year that I was to go, but my mother got sick. So it was one of those things that if you went, I would have needed to have gone there. So I couldn't go, which was a bummer, but they had a blast out there too. There's a whole other group of guys that I want to know better than just on Instagram and Facebook. Yep. Right?
I'd love to go to one of those or both of those events actually, if they're going to continue to do the California one. Even the little Hot Rod Rock and Rumble, I say little, that show is actually huge. You guys came down, was it last year or the first time you've been to it, or had you been before?
Last year was the first time I'd gone to it, and I couldn't believe it. Like when I pulled in the 36, I was like, "What? Yeah. This is crazy!" So I had a blast, man, and it poured down, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, when we all just gathered up under the tents and like, okay, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, me and RJ just went and saw whose car filled up with water more than the others. So
I tell the story. There's a little show in Greece, or not little, it's 1,000 cars. There's a show called the Greaserama in Kansas City. It's Labor Day weekend. It used to be held at a dusty, dirty, cool old school drive-in. And so it's just like chalky white rock everywhere.
Right.
So one year the downpour just immediately hits us. It wasn't like a slow ramp up. It just boom hit. So everybody's running to find anybody with a tent to make friends with. So it's like, okay, hey, look, you have a tent.
Right.
And everybody's like, yeah, come on, stand under here. So you're standing under some stranger's tent, drinking beer, meeting new people. And then you kind of, run to the next tent that's closer to your car and run to the, to get back to your own tent or something. And just made a ton of friends from that weird thing you would never think of.
Right.
And it was cool because you see two kinds of people. You see the guys that are just like, holding their beers up like, hey man, it's having a good time. And then the guy that as soon as it stops raining, he's up to furiously shammying the car. You're like, you probably, you're not really going to fit in here, sir. I appreciate you coming here, but I'd love for you to come and hang out with us. But if you're more worried about those spots, because it's going to rain again in like 10 minutes,
right?
And then 10 more minutes come by, it rains a second time. He goes out there and he starts shamming it off and just gets pissed off, gets in his car and leaves.
Yep.
Right.
Like, exactly. And see, I used to be that guy with Rudy.
Oh.
It's like, this is too stressful. I don't need a shiny car. I need the Model A that gets covered in mud and salt and whatever, and I hose it off, and she fires up every time, and that's why I've had more fun in that car.
It is a great little car.
I'm with you. It's fun. It really is.
So go ahead. I was like, you're getting a Merc back. You're going to take it down and have some work down there in Colorado Springs. Do you have a rough timetable for when you're wanting to have the whole car? I don't want to say done, because are they ever really done?
Yeah, so I'm trying, because this is like, I'm trying to build my dream Merc, like I kind of took over Dan's dream Merc with the 39, and it's still an amazing car, but it's Dan's car in my eyes. I hate to say it that way, but it is. It's still going to be Dan's car. And so the plan is to bring it back for paint. So I'm going to get the paint figured out, and then I have been talking to a guy in Phoenix, in Arizona, that does he actually does work for Kevin Sledge a lot, and he does his interior is exactly what I want for the car. And so you know how it is, like there's a lot of upholstery guys, and we know a lot of upholstery guys, and they're amazing at what they do, but it's a certain eye that you keep on seeing their work, and I'm like, he gets it, he knows the period that I'm looking for. Like there's not even like a hint of street rod in there, like it's period.
And there's a handful of upholsterers I know like that I would have no problem taking them the 55 when it's ready and say, do an upholstery in it, and this color, other than that, do your thing.
Right.
And just come back later and see what happens. I'd be happy with it. I know other upholsterers are tremendously talented, but they're kind of chameleons. They can do any style.
Right.
And when they do any style, it's like, okay, I would think I would have to go in there and lay down, this is exactly what I want. Right. And so, yeah, having somebody work on a car, whether it's the paint or the upholstery or the chop, you know, having somebody who just knows what you want before you say it makes a world of difference.
And that's kind of it. And it was actually the part of my reasoning for getting the twins as well, is the fact that, as you know, there's a lot of Mercuries that have been chopped. And obviously when you start playing around in this whole Mercury guys thing, there's a million of them out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them that, like, the new trends kind of adopted to really slam them at the back a little bit more, and that's more of like a California kind of vibe. It's still cool, but I want it to be more like traditional. So the twins get it, and so it might not be everybody's flavor on how the chop is, but to me, it's done the way it should have done, and that's what it looks like it could have been done in 1950.
Yeah.
And that's what I was after. I needed a little bit more on the windshield, and the twins car's pretty hard chopped in the windshield, and it looks awesome, but I'm a tall dude. Like, it literally looked like a mail slot. So I'm like, we need to give me just at least another 1.5 inches.
I am in absolute love with Troy Hastings' car. Glad I put car. Dude, I'm glad I put car in there, right? But I'm not tall. And when I'm sitting in that thing, I cannot see down the road at all. And
really?
I mean, it is a crazy, perfect, it's beautiful chop, but I would have to I'd have to sink the seat down even further. And it's basically on the ground already, because I had my butt scooted all the way forward so that I could hunch myself down and look straight forward a little more. And you know, he's 5-6 inches taller than I am. So I'm not really sure how that math all works, but
I mean, to be quite honest with you, I'm actually in love with Troy. He's a handsome man.
He is.
How can you not be? But it's also, when you do get in his car, see, I like his car, but I'm also used to that chop. And I think that's sometimes part of the shock is you get into a chop car for the first time. You're like, shit, what did I do? I can't see anything. But then you kind of do. Like, it's the same with my car. I got to hunch down a little bit, you know, to sort of see out of it. But I got a picture, obviously, from the Merc, and it's chopped. You know it when you're sitting in that car. That's it. And my only worry is, at least with the Model A, it's short. Like, I know how far I can get up somewhere. Mercury's have a long hood.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's interesting. The 39 actually I fit in a little better, but it's not as chopped as the 40. The 40's definitely got a good chop on it. And they laid the windshield, the back window back just like I wanted. So I could not be any happier. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's come out, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's how I wanted it. Like, oh my God, this is how I wanted it. So I was going to change the window frames originally to straight, but then I decided to do them Matranga style, and I think it was worth it.
It's very cool. So
yeah, absolutely.
So you've got that car. You've got the other Merc that actually, you know, came from Dan. You've got your Model A back. Yep. Are there any cars on your wish list still that are you're just like, or you're just focusing on, let's get these where
honestly,
I want them?
No.
Really?
Yeah, honestly, that's where I'm at. Like, the Model A is kind of where I'm at. Like, I want to get a set of Alma shocks for the Model A.
Yeah,
I want those shocks on there. I know those dudes. The Merc is really my baby right now. And, you know, a lot of, you know, graduating, you can go up to like the Lincoln Zephyrs. Yeah, they're beautiful cars. But honestly, I am completely content with that Mercury. I say that now. Let's be honest, in a year, who knows where I'll be.
That's how I felt about the shoebox. Everybody's like, are you going to get a Merc? I'm like, well, first of all, I can't afford a Merc. Secondly, I was perfectly happy with the shoebox. I would still have it if I didn't have to repair to the old house. You know,
right.
If I wasn't strapped for cash when that flood thing happened, I'd still have that car, and I'd be worrying about where to put, 3 cars now instead of 2. So,
well, and that's exactly it. We'll see. In all honesty, the 39 is still going to be sold. I just need to get my ass into gear and put it a little bit more complete. I think I've had a lot of people interested in the car, and it's got the Barris connection, which is great, and all that other stuff. But I do plan on moving it, but I don't have to move it, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And, you get these guys with these crazy lowball numbers. I'm like, I don't need to get that. In fact, if anything, it's probably priced a little bit lower than it really should be. But again, I'm trying to be fair.
Right.
But the plan is to put more of that car together this summer and move it on, and then just keep the 2 cars. I even did that with my dailies. I had 2 dailies. I'm like, picking up the wrong keys for the wrong car. I'm like, this is stupid. Why am I paying insurance and tags on an extra vehicle? So I'm just trying to simplify it right now and just enjoy what I've got, So the Model A is, it's a bar hopper, let's be honest. It's not going to be a car I'll drive probably even to Colorado Springs without being crippled.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
But the Merc, you can get into it. Like it's a gorgeous car. Like even just driving around the neighborhood before I even started pulling it to bits, the transmission shifts like butter. There's no valve train noise in that original flathead, and you can't even hear it running. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's just honestly, it was kind of like a reference car. I'll be honest. It's never been pulled to pieces. It originally came from Phoenix. There's never been any rust in the car. It's never been hit. Like it's amazing. And even when I brought it out to the twins, they were like blown away. They actually said, "This is the nicest car we've ever chopped." I'm like, hack it down, make it cool.
Have you caught any flack from people for cutting up such a nice car?
Hell yeah. Gosh, yeah. I got flack from chopping the Model A because the Model A was actually a really pretty original car when I got it, and I'm like pulling fenders off and Zach's chopping 5 inches out of the roof. I'm like, I don't care. Like it's my stuff. They didn't make 3 of them, guys. They made a lot of them.
Right.
So, but no, and even the Mercury, like I think some people didn't get it, and I was posting pictures on my personal Facebook page. So a lot of my friends that just know that I'm a car nerd, they don't know any more about that.
Right.
But I had a buddy call me. Granted, he'd had a couple of beers and he was chatty, and he's like, "I don't care about cars. I know you like him." He says, "But just to watch all your pictures of those guys like building your window frames," like he says, "I appreciate like craftsmanship."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what they're doing, but it looks amazing on what they're doing. So that was really neat to see that kind of stuff, you know. And they're not hiding anything. I know what I've got. You know, it's not like an old car full of Bondo.
See, I've had a little bit of bourbon in this cup. So you say, I don't know what they're doing, but I like what they're doing. I was like, it sounds like the first time I went to a strip club.
Exactly. Exactly. So, no, it was really cool to just, you know, have that appreciation for what the car is. And then I did that split picture of the car when I first dropped it off with them, and then after they chopped it, and it was like night and day. It's just so funny because Mercs are literally the ugliest car they made back then, and they're the sexiest when you chop them.
It's like the only thing wrong with that car from the factory is the roof. The rest of the body lines are gorgeous and elegant, and then that roof just like, what did you just have a short week that week? And
it reminds me of a British Morris Minor 1000. It's the goofiest looking turd you've ever seen. But what was funny is before I chopped it, like we picked this car up, and the first place we stopped at, these women were coming up and taking photos of it. They loved it. And everywhere we went, all the ladies were loving the car the way it was. In fact, where I had it down in storage, the storage guy that I have, his wife wanted to buy it. And she says, "What will it take for me to buy that car off you?" I'm like, "Sorry, it's going to go get chopped up." But I think now that they can see it, they can actually appreciate why I did what I did.
Yeah. Well, there's always those people, and I've been ill-advised to interact with those people on Facebook lately. You know, I posted a picture of a car, it's like, and on my Facebook, on my Royboy page, somebody goes, "It's too low. Raise it back up and put the right hubcaps on it." Oh. And I'm just like, what are you doing on a hot rod and custom car page?
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to go to the stock car page.
Exactly. That was kind of like when if you exit purposely went over to the Model A restorer side of like the Ham or something like that, and you're like, "I want to put a flathead in this Model A," and it was just like blasphemy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I got kicked off the other day. I'm trying to sell this F100 crossmember conversion for a Model A to put a late model trans in it, and they kicked me out. This is an original Model A piece. I'm like, "Oh, sorry, dude." So it's funny, but no, I mean, yeah, the Merc I definitely got some flack for because of like, you don't see them, they're beautiful cars. I'm like, you see them everywhere, but they're stuck in people's garages. Nobody's doing anything with them. It's the same with Model A's. There's millions of Model A's stuck in garages that grandpa restored that no one really cares about. But if you see them looking the way my car is, it's kind of giving a new sort of lease on life with them. And we use them.
Yeah.
As you know, we're not scared to like beat on them. At Todd's, I beat on it. At Woody's, in fact, the radiator was so full of mud and the car got really hot. It actually ran better with those 97s on it. That car was just filthy, but we have a blast in them, and that's what it's all about. Like, I like car shows, but only a few now because I'd rather do the fun stuff and drive them around with everybody.
So let's make a deal.
Yeah.
You get your Merc done.
Yep.
And there's 2 custom shows that we're going to take it to. I'll go with you. Let Ain't Dead in Dewey, Oklahoma. It's a small little show, the same place we do the Stray Cat 500, same people put it on. And the Custom Car Revival in Indy. I think
Deal.
that card, Custom Car Revival in Indy, I think there'll be a lot of these, no offense, well, I would say no offense, guys, but let's face it, they don't know how to run a pod, they don't know how to listen to podcasts. A lot of the old timers that would love that car.
Right.
And
because it's going to bring them back to a time, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. We don't need another like candy apple red street rod looking one. I want what they would have built when they were young guys in the early 50s.
Yeah. I am going for the same thing on the 55, except Beautiful. It's already bagged, so I'm going to leave it bagged, and it's already got a 80s drivetrain in it. I'll leave that in there and just keep the hood shut.
Well, but you also drive. You have to drive like 6,000 miles to go anywhere because you're in the middle of Kansas, right? Yeah. You need to be able to get there.
The nice thing is I can be in Dallas. Well, from the old house, I always told people I can be in Dallas in 6 hours, Denver in 6 hours, Des Moines, St. Louis, Omaha in 5. It's like, yeah, I'm in the middle of nowhere, but I'm also just close enough to go do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Where
now you actually are. We are actually, Denver's kind of a little goofy in that thing. We're either like a million miles here or there too. So no, that's the plan. The car, I want to get it out and about because if we really look, most of the Mercs that we always look at on Instagram are on the West Coast.
Yeah.
There's not much here. And that's why I wanted to kind of share what I was doing with this car to kind of get guys here kind of excited for it too, and do more of this stuff with those guys, you know what I mean? And we have really good, talented guys here too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the twins, they're just freaking great guys, man. I just can't, like I said, it's just one of those things when you meet somebody, it's just like, dude, I feel like I've known you forever. Like, and that was the crazy thing is like when they were talking, because they know they're identical twins, like I'm like looking at one and then the other one finishes like Peter or, they'll finish each other's sentences because they know what they're thinking at the same time. Like it's crazy, but really cool to watch. Like you just know what to do on your car. Yeah. And I think they assign themselves like certain tasks to get done on the vehicle, and that's what they do. So, I was just impressed when they first got it in the car, and 2 days later, it's like it's dropped. It's already lowered.
I know. The speed at which they were getting all this stuff done was really cool. I'm trying to think now. It's been 2 months they've had it total. I mean, they haven't worked on it the whole time. Of course, they've had other cars they've worked on as well, but. Right,
they've been doing like that. They have a Lincoln Zephyr in there that was a 4-door. They've converted it into a 3-door coupe. Like they're doing a lot of other work as well. They just did that 54 Chevy for a gentleman. So, no, they're efficient, man. And it really what it does show sometimes is some of the shops I think do sit on the stuff a little longer than they need to, and it's not that they're gonna everyone's can do it at that speed. And there's some guys that do an amazing job, but. They are the average guy like me's kind of guy to go to. Their prices are really reasonable. Their time frame's great, and we can actually enjoy the car and not have to sit there for two years waiting for it.
I know some of these shops that how do I say this? Some of the shops like they have the car for a long time, and there's a good reason for it. And
sometimes it is.
Yeah, and sometimes the reason is just, hey, the car owner didn't have enough money to go full tilt on it. They got enough money for me to work about a week a week out of the month. Hey,
right.
That happens.
And that's totally normal. And actually, those guys, the twins, actually have had the same problem. They've had the same thing. They have an owner that gets gung ho. They start working on it, and all of a sudden, the money dries up just as they're trying to get into the full swing of things.
Right.
So, and I told them straight up when I was doing it, I was like, we already kind of had our estimates figured out. I wasn't going to bring it there till I had that money sitting there for them, so it's not an issue.
Yep.
In fact, I actually paid them a deposit, and they're working so damn fast. I text, I think Peter, and I was like, dude, I need to send you some more money because I feel like you've done way more than I've paid for. So I've already I paid them a second installment. So because I really appreciated what they were doing.
Yeah. Well, the guys that get it and get on it, they're they're worth whatever you pay them to get it done.
They really are. You know what I mean? And so, and again, the car is it's a good car that's worth doing this to. Otherwise, I mean, I hate to say it, but it would have just gone to another old boy that would have brought it and then stuck it in his garage and never done anything with the car. I sound so heartless when I say that, but I think that's really what's happening to a lot of these cars. And then they're like, well, we never see them. They must be rare. I'm like, no, there's plenty out there. They're just never out.
They're sitting in the garage with some boxes sitting on top of them, and they haven't moved in 12 years,
Right.
There's a ton of cars like that out there. Well,
there is.
We've probably run this thing long enough, so I'm gonna hit stop on this. But Clint, I'm so happy for you, dude. That car is looking amazing, and it was kind of fun to have somebody on here that's like I said, have a little different perspective.
For sure, man. I appreciate it, dude.
So we'll hit stop on the recorder here, and then you and I will talk a little bit longer. So
sounds good, brother. What
is the Instagram handle for somebody who wants to follow along and see pictures of the car?
So my one is just Clint Glasgow, Clint A. Glasgow on Instagram.
And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So
awesome.
go check out his Instagram and see all the cool stuff going on with the cars there. Thank you, buddy, for taking time to do this. I really appreciate
it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
That was a really good time talking with Clint. Man, I always have a good time talking with Clint. Really, one of my better friends I've met in the last few years. It's kind of weird for me to say that, but we have a blast anytime we hang out. I'm super bummed I'm not going to be able to go to Flaming Gorge Resort and hang out with everybody there this coming weekend, 4th of July weekend, 2021. But it's just not in the cards this year. From the sounds of it, it sounds like I will be going to Des Moines for work to help in the booth at the Good Guys show there in Des Moines. So it's going to be a pretty crazy weekend for us there. And I think we're just going to be slam busy. So a lot of stuff to talk about, man. 2 weeks ago, went to some vintage drags down at the Midway Drag Strip, Ark City, Kansas, or outside Ark City, Kansas. That was a really good time. Talked to my friends, the Neils from Mississippi. They were the owners of the car, the pickup that was the Mississippi vehicle for the 48 Cars 40 State trip. Really great time hanging out there and watching them drag race. Had a blast. The next weekend, we took off. We were supposed to be at back to the 50s in Minnesota, but our Freightliner let us down the day before we were supposed to leave. The Freightliner decided it just didn't want to start. So it's been at the dealership for about a week and a half trying to get a whole bunch of stuff repaired on it. It's a 2005 model and it just gets driven a lot. And we've been really diligent about keeping it up, and it's just now starting to show us that, hey, that 15 years or so that it sat around and nobody really drove it before we owned it, it's starting to catch up with it. So didn't go to that, but I was able to work the rest of that week at home instead of being on the road. And then on Friday, it took off Friday afternoon, and we went out to Great Bend. Vanessa and I went out there to see the Rocky Mountain Race Week. Our friends Tom Stark and his son were racing. I'm trying to think what day that was. That was it was a week ago now. Him and Blaine were really, I think they were doing well in their class. I don't remember if they were leading it or not. They get to Denver. They turn the fastest time ever in for their car, and then it melts down 2 cylinders. It happened at the track, so they couldn't drive it back to their shop, which lucky for them is in Denver. So they had to swap the engine at the track. They did some figuring, did some thinking, realized we've got a LS engine back at the shop. It's not the big one. It's not a 6-liter. It's a 5-liter, 5.3. And they swapped it out in the pits. I'm going to see if we can get them on and talk about this. I think it'd be really fun to talk to 13-year-old Blaine. If you watch the 1320 videos, they just call him 13-year-old crew chief. And I think it'd be fun to get them on and talk about their whole experience in that race week. It was really fun to watch the videos on YouTube and actually just go out and hang out with everybody out there on Friday afternoon, although it was 102 or some craziness like that. So that was the last 2 weeks. Now this weekend, nothing really going on. The last week of June. Next week, like I said, Des Moines. Weekend after that, the Automobilia show in Automobilia is in Wichita this year. It's all on Douglas. It used to be all over downtown. Now it's on one street, so it'll be an interesting vibe to it this year. A couple weeks later, it's time for KKOA in Salina, so lots of stuff going on. I'm going to have some upcoming podcasts with a couple different people. I'm actually getting ready to record a new episode right after I finish this one. We're going to talk to Johnny Plummer from Johnny Chop Customs down in the Austin area. He's stepped out on his own and started his own shop here recently, so we're going to talk about that and BS about hot rods and customs down there. Also, we're going to try to have on Brent from PFI Speed in the Denver area. If you watch the Cletus McFarland channel on YouTube, Brent is Cletus's co-pilot for the Rocky Mountain Race Weeks, and they won this year, which was pretty awesome. They won their class. And right before race week, PFI Speed was hit with EPA fines. and thousands of dollars with the EPA fines, all because they were selling a product that the EPA has deemed no bueno. We're going to get into that because this weekend he's going to have SEMA, some representatives from SEMA and some other people at his shop to talk about this specifics of what's going on with him and the EPA and see if they can help him out. I've also heard that the Diesel brothers in Vegas have been hit with a massive fine. One of the Diesel guys in Florida that's always on the Cleats McFarland YouTube channel, he's been hit with massive fines. And some people are like, well, what do we care? I'm not doing that kind of stuff, so I don't have to worry about it. No, that's just where the EPA is starting. The short version is the Clean Air Act a few years ago has a gray area in it. Most people would interpret it one way, but the lawyers at the EPA, and now think about this, there are lawyers that were hired during the last administration. This is not the new administration's fault. I'm not a fan of either administration. I'm just telling you, the people who are doing this were hired during the last administration. They interpret the rules to say you can't modify a stock vehicle. Anything that's modified from stock at all could be deemed illegal, and the person who sold you the parts can be fined. You could be fined. It's a big, stupid mess. And that's basically on any car, from what I understand, is 52 and after. So we'll get all the details of that from Brent when he is on in a future episode here in a couple weeks. But I just want you to know right now, if you go to SEMA.org, you'll see information on the RPM Act. You need to sign that. You need to send that to your representatives. Your elected representatives need to know how you feel about them telling you what you can and can't bolt to your car. Start getting worked up. I can feel myself going into a rant. Not going to let that happen because we need to do that when we talk to Brent because he's got all the good info. Okay. So that's coming up. And, I just want to keep this short. I want to say, folks, thank you so much for sticking with me. I know it's been a long time since I've been putting these episodes out, and I'm working at it. It's just taken me a little while to get them all done. So I've got 2 more in the works, and it will be out soon. So we should see you again very soon. If you are not a Patreon subscriber, you're just getting this by audio. If you are a Patreon subscriber, you can see me. Really don't know that that's worth any money, but my girlfriend likes it. So hi, baby, that kind of stuff. So go to Patreon. You can help me put this show on because it is expensive just to have royboyproductions.com. By the time you get everything all together, there's like $165 a month that comes out of my pocket just to keep all the royboyproductions.com stuff going, between the podcasts, the web hosting, and all that. And for about 15 years now, I've just done that out of my own pocket. It's never made enough money to pay for itself. So if you're one of these people who enjoys the podcast and you want to see them more often, please go to Patreon, subscribe there. Any little bit does help. And I guess we'll close this out like we always do. Stay safe, don't die. We'll see you at a show. Thanks for listening to another episode of Chrome Pipes and Pinstripes. If you got to this point, that means you listened to the whole show, and I appreciate that. So I want to throw one thing out here. If you dig what I do with these podcasts, you dig what I do with RoyboyProductions.com, please consider going over to patreon.com/RoyboyProductions. patreon.com/RoyboyProductions. That's where, if you feel like it, you can say, hey, you know what? I'll throw Royboy $1 a month or $5 a month or $10 a month because I appreciate what he does. Talking about myself in the third person sounds really weird. So, forgive me for all the weirdness here. If you dig what I do, please come over here and help support what I do because it takes a lot of money to go to these events, to stay in the hotels, to buy this expensive equipment. All of my equipment is getting pretty old. So the podcast recorder right now is held together with just prayer. I think that's the only thing making it continue to work. And I will need to buy a new one at some point this year. And they're quite pricey. So I'm not trying to complain, just saying thank you for all the people who have helped me over the years by buying hats and shirts and stuff. I'll have new shirts out this year. And in the meantime, you can go over to royboyproductions.com, check out all the stuff I have there. If you feel like throwing a couple dollars a month at me, I really would appreciate it. It's patreon.com/royboyproductions. And I'll work out some stuff that the people who donate there get a little bit of heads up and get some stuff ahead of time. All right. Thanks for listening. Have yourself a great day. Bye-bye now.
Well, somebody's got to ride this dinosaur. 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 Ride this dinosaur.